Hello, welcome to Working with Miniatures. I'm Jim, and tonight we're going to be painting the Aztec Ayar from the Mythic America's war game. We'll primarily be using Army Painter Speedpaints and Warpaints. Let's get started. This miniature was primed black with an airbrush, followed by an anti-zenithal spray of German red-brown primer, and zenithal sprays of peach pink and titanium white inks. Once inside, I start my brushwork by applying highlights with maize yellow speed paint over every object on the miniature, including the base. I then flip the miniature upside down and start adding darker shadows using Purple Swarm speed paint. In retrospect, I should have primed the miniature in purple, which would have saved me a couple of steps already. Speed paints already give several shades naturally with how they seek out the deepest recesses, and adding zenithal highlights increases that amount of shades. And I suspect by adding the purple and yellow shades and highlights, I will add yet even more to the hue range. I let the first two speed paints fully dry to the touch and then add ochre clay sporadically around the crocodile maw. I then add desolate brown as a shade in the recessed areas I painted with the ochre clay. I then apply algae green to the remaining areas of the croc's snout that was left unpainted, barring the open wounds. I add burnt moss to shade the deeper recesses of the spots that the previous algae green was applied to. In the previous video I stated I would use speed paints less, especially for base coats, and here I am in the very next video swinging well over a dozen speed paints. Fickle I am, by nature. The bones are treated much the same, being base coated with bony matter before being shaded with some warrior skin. I repeat this application of one speed paint for a base coat, followed by a shade of another darker speed paint to paint the fur of the Ayar itself, as well as the various bare parts found around this monstrosity. The human bodies, or what's left of these poor pulverized souls, are base coated with peachy flesh and then shaded with fire drake speed paints. Initially I was going to paint the wolf or coyote head the same as the Ayar's fur, but I decided I would make it an albino. This is the only section that I did not use multiple speed paints on. With everything that's not bloodied ruined life, base coated and shaded or highlighted either by zenithal or anti-zenithal airbrushing, or the manual yellow or purple speed paints applied at the start, I begin the arduous task of base coating the gory bits using poppy red. I then add slaughter red with sloppy stippling over the gore. Slaughter red is a good bit more saturated than the faded poppy red, but I leave quite a bit of the original showing. Painting these red sections took as long as the rest of the base coats, as I had to be careful not to paint over the other work. I decided to add a little bit of additional shadows in the gore, selectively adding murder scene, aptly named, to the bottoms of any ridges found in the gory mess. After roughly 2 or 3 hours, I take the miniature outside and hit it with Tester's Dull Coat Matte Varnish. Then, with an old syringe I removed the plunger from, I transfer clean mineral spirits to the bowls of a metal palette and add a little of each of the 3 oil paints. With a cheap synthetic brush, I slowly mix in a little of the oil paints. I want it as thick as I can get it, but I need it to still be runny. If you place a drop on the upper part of the bowl and it immediately runs back down, then it's the right consistency. But if it runs slowly or not at all, then you need to add a little more mineral spirits to thin it back down. In total, I used 3 mixtures: black and green, black and red, and pure black. The black and green was added to the crocodile snout and the little scaly bits at the base of the tail. The black and red I added to the gory areas, and the black I added everywhere else. I let the oil set for 30 to 45 minutes. I then dip makeup sponges into clean mineral spirits and squeeze most of the mineral spirits out. Lightly rub away the oil wash from the upraised areas. If you see mineral spirits squeezing out of the sponge, you are either rubbing too hard or you have too much mineral spirits left in the sponge. Alternatively, you can use Q-tips, but Q-tips tend to leave wispy strands stuck on any sharp edges of the miniatures that you'll have to remove later. It's important that you varnished your miniature well before this stage, as mineral spirits can easily eat away unprotected acrylics, especially thin speed paints. I let the miniature set for a while until it's dry enough to touch again, and then I begin adding highlights with Army Painter's acrylic Warpaints, then down with water. For the final touches, I mix matte black with glistening gore and add it sparingly over any wounds in the corpses, followed by pure glistening gore, which I stipple over anything that's bloody. This is the final result. I stumbled upon this miniature while hunting for Native American miniatures to paint since it's Thanksgiving here in the United States. I've been having trouble finding anything turkey related or pilgrim related, but there are a good amount of Native American miniatures that are easily available. But this thing, which instantly reminded me of John Carpenter's The Thing based on the story Who Goes There, was too hard to pass on. While you may spend your Thanksgiving gorging yourself on tryptophan-laden meats and congealed cranberries and baked pumpkin purees, I'll be spending my Thanksgiving sacrificing any mortal beings I can get my mitts on to ensure I've done everything I can to prevent this roiling mass of death from shambling up to my driveway. All in all, I'm happy with this miniature, and I only spent about 8 hours on it, with the airbrush work, speed paints, and the oil washes doing all of the hard work. The only part I had trouble with was painting all the eyes, especially on a couple of the bodies on the back, due to the odd angles I had to paint from. For lessons learned, I'm spending more time to try to remove and clean up bad joints and mold lines. However, there are quite a few bad spots that I thought I cleaned up well enough, and some I outright missed. This is a full list of the colors and materials that were used in this project.
It's going to wrap it up for tonight. I hope you learned something or inspired to check out this war game. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And if you like the content of this video and would like to see more, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm Jim with Working with Miniatures. I'm truly grateful for your time, and I bid you a fond farewell. Until the next video.